There are moments when you step into a new space, a meeting, a classroom, or simply a coffee gathering. Among many people present, only one instantly captures your attention. They don't need to say anything remarkable, nor do they necessarily have striking looks or a high status, but their very presence radiates an invisible field of energy that naturally draws you in. They walk with steadiness, their eyes bright, their face calm, and their demeanor full of trust. When they smile, the whole space feels warmer. When they are silent, no one dares to disregard them. They embody something unseen yet powerful, life energy. The ancients used to say, spirit defines temperament, temperament defines destiny. Everything you radiate in silence is your way of communicating with the world. And the world, in some way, always responds to the frequency you emit. Throughout history, when people talk about success, they often emphasize ability. Who is smarter? Who is more talented? Who has more skills? But few pause to ask, why are there people who are very capable, yet cannot break through? Why do two people start at the same school with the same opportunities, yet after a few years, one rises brilliantly while the other remains stuck in struggle? The answer lies in an invisible yet fundamental factor, life energy. Energy is not some vague concept reserved for monks or mystics, but something tangible in your gaze, your voice, your posture, your breath, your spirit, and the mindset you carry each day. Those with high energy don't need to speak much, yet their presence alone brings ease to others. When they speak, people listen. When they act, others want to follow. On the other hand, those with low energy, no matter how talented, often make the atmosphere heavy and struggle to build trust. Human beings are, in essence, energetic beings. Our bodies are not merely flesh and blood, but the unity of body, mind, and soul, and energy is the flow that connects all three. When the body is healthy, physical energy circulates, and you feel resilient and alert. When the mind is clear, mental energy is not blocked by anger, anxiety, or doubt. When the soul lives in alignment with values, ideals, and beliefs, inner energy burns like an unquenchable flame. Eastern philosophies thousands of years ago recognized this. Concepts such as qi and blood, meridians, and innate vital energy all refer to this flow. Meanwhile, modern psychology affirms the role of the emotional field, the energetic sphere of emotions, that directly influences actions, decisions, relationships, and even opportunities in life. Therefore, energy is the root, while ability is only the external manifestation. In a society where people race to acquire more skills, higher degrees, and sharper intellect, many unconsciously neglect this foundation. Without sufficient energy, even the greatest abilities become powerless. You may be extremely intelligent, but if you wake up drained, feel exhausted at noon, and only want to escape the world at night, all the knowledge and skills you possess remain locked in your head, unable to transform into action. It is like a high-spec computer with a dead battery or a luxury car with no fuel. You stall midway, watching others move forward without understanding why. The truth is, energy creates emotions. Emotions guide behavior. Repeated behaviors create results, and long-term results shape destiny. Those with positive energy are usually joyful, optimistic, proactive, and flexible. They act quickly, dare to try, dare to fail, and dare to move forward. Conversely, those with low energy often fall into negative emotions, boredom, anxiety, blame, or inferiority. This leads to procrastination, fear of failure, lack of persistence, and eventually missed opportunities. It is not that they lack intelligence, but that they lack the energy to sustain the fire for the journey. Life does not defeat you with events, but with the level of energy you carry when facing those events. Yet most of us focus only on how to overcome challenges, forgetting that before overcoming anything, we must first be strong enough to stand firm. When you are in a state of high energy, you not only feel physically healthy and mentally clear, but you also attract the right opportunities and people. In contrast, when energy is low, you easily fall into a negative spiral. The more exhausted you feel, the less motivated you become, the further you drift from what you truly want. Raising energy is not a matter of 1 or 2 days, but a continuous process of cultivation. It may mean taking care of your physical health through proper nutrition and exercise. It may mean cleansing your mind of negative emotions through gratitude, meditation, or simply choosing a healthier environment. It may mean living in alignment with what your heart truly believes, so that your soul's energy keeps burning bright. Once you understand that energy is the foundation, you realize that it's not just about learning to become better, but about living to become fuller, full of energy, full of vitality, full of faith, because it is the energy you carry in each moment that determines what you attract, who you meet, and where you go on your journey. We often forget that life does not require you to be the best, but to be the brightest in energy, in spirit, in presence. Those with high energy are like the sun. They do not strive to shine for anyone, but their light still nourishes everything around them. They do not compete, strain, or boast, but their inner stability makes others trust them. They may be silent, but never invisible, humble, but never disregarded. On the other hand, those with weak energy often justify, complain, or judge others because their inner strength is insufficient to bear responsibility for themselves. That is why two people in the same job and circumstances can have such different outcomes. One builds a career, one loses direction. Not because one is smarter, but because one has more energy. Therefore, if you want to improve the quality of your life, don't just think about what more to learn, which certificate to pursue, or which job to change. Begin with raising your life energy. When you have energy, you have good emotions. When you have positive emotions, you take strong action. When you take the right actions, you create results. And from those results, you realize all you truly need is not more knowledge, but to become a brighter, stronger version of yourself from within. Energy is charisma, essence, resilience, and a silent magnetism no school can teach, yet it determines how far you will go. A person with energy may be defeated temporarily, but never crushed entirely. A person with energy, even if given only a kennel, will turn it into a home. And a person with great energy, though arriving empty-handed on a deserted island, will still build a kingdom of their own. If you look deeply into your life experiences, you will see a clear pattern. Every time your energy is high, everything flows easier. You work more effectively, think more clearly, solve problems faster, communicate more attractively, and even walk with more strength. Conversely, when energy drops due to a sleepless night, a negative remark, or a tangled thought, you start to slow down, doubt yourself, lose spirit, and make poor decisions. Everything you do in a day stems from life energy, the invisible fuel that determines whether the vehicle of your life can keep moving. Energy generates emotions. Emotions drive actions. Actions repeated become habits. Habits create results, and long-term results shape destiny. I once went through phases where it felt as if I had fallen to the very bottom of exhaustion. Every morning when I opened my eyes, it was a battle. Everything slowed down. Ideas dried up. My body had no strength, and my spirit flickered like a dying candle. At that time, I thought I lacked motivation, passion, and goals. But then I realized I didn't lack those things. I only lacked energy. And that energy could not come from anyone else but myself. No one can live for you, think for you, or breathe for you. Do you want to be happier? You must create the frequency of happiness yourself. Do you want to be stronger? You must sit with yourself and restore the energy you've drained. There are no shortcuts, no miracles. You cannot change your life unless you change the level of energy operating inside you. A person with high energy is always positive, inspiring, resilient after failure, and wherever they are, they make others feel safe. They may not be the most talented or the most successful, but they are the most persistent, the most clear-minded, and the most grounded. They are like mountains that stand firm in the storm, like roots gripping the earth through rain and wind. On the other hand, people with low energy often lose direction. Outwardly, life may not look so bad, but inside they are like a dry field, barren, chaotic, and lifeless. They are easily irritable, quick to give up, prone to envy, and often feel like losers. The cause isn't necessarily their circumstances, but the fact that their inner energy isn't strong enough to keep them clear and awake. If you keep forcing yourself to struggle with depleted energy, you'll only exhaust yourself further. Instead of blaming yourself for being weak or pushing yourself to rise above, the first thing you need is to recharge. Start with simple things: a full night's sleep, a clean meal, some time away from social media, an afternoon walk in the sun, an evening spent just breathing and listening to your heartbeat. These small things are the life tubes that reconnect you with the energy you've lost. When your energy is full again, you return to the race with a completely different state of mind. Not forced strength, but genuine stability because you've been refueled. If you've ever wondered, why is it easier for others to succeed than me? The answer doesn't lie in degrees, luck, or background. It lies in the energy you carry each day. What energy do you wake up with? What frequency do you communicate in? Do you work in exhaustion or in inspiration? Your destiny is the direct result of these things. You don't need to change the whole world. You only need to change the frequency of the energy you emit. The world always responds exactly to what you send out. In any group, at work, in class, among friends, there are always people whose mere presence changes the atmosphere. They may not speak much or stand out with appearances or titles, but their vitality, spirit, and magnetism cannot be ignored. They create safety, comfort, and make others want to stay close. Such people often become the inspiration for the group, the spiritual anchor in times of hardship, the one who makes decisions in moments of confusion. None of that is accidental. It is the power of positive energy. That energy makes everything around them clearer, lighter, and warmer. I once worked with a woman who held no leadership role, yet whenever meetings grew tense, as soon as she walked in, everyone breathed easier. She didn't lecture or command. She simply was. Her calm gaze, slow words, and gentle smile instantly softened the room. When asked her secret, she just laughed. I don't try to make anyone comfortable. I just keep myself at peace inside, and it spreads out naturally. That is how high-energy people operate, not by forcing themselves to be special, but by being firmly grounded from within, so their presence naturally carries value. In contrast, there are people who try harder to prove themselves, but only drain those around them. They talk too much, boast, compare, and justify. But the energy they emit is worry, insecurity, and lack of confidence. They may be strong in theory, but because their energy is low, their behavior is unstable. They get angry easily, feel hurt quickly, complain often, and judge others to cover up their inner void. In a team, they easily cause conflict. In life, they often feel disadvantaged. All of this does not come from circumstances, but from the inner energy field they live in every day. Therefore, if your energy makes others feel drained, no matter how skilled you are, it will be hard to gain trust. But if you bring positivity, reliability, and ease, sometimes you don't need to be the best. People will still choose you first. This world chooses you not only for your abilities, but for the energy you bring. And that energy, no one can create it for you. No school can teach it. It is only you who can cultivate and protect it daily. So I hope from now on, you'll pay more attention to your own energy. You don't need to appear dazzling or prove yourself to the world. You only need to be stable, positive, kind, and proactive from within. You don't have to be the most magnetic person, but be someone who makes others feel safe and sincere when near you. If you think these words can help someone on their journey to improve their life, spread them. Who knows? The small energy you share today may become the flame that warms a soul in need of strength. I have always believed that throughout human history, those who became legends weren't necessarily the smartest or the most privileged. They were people with powerful inner energy, that which helped them stand firm in storms, remain decisive in chaos, and stay optimistic even when facing adversity. They didn't let circumstances dictate their attitude, but used their energy to change circumstances. The story of Liu Bang, the founding emperor of the Han Dynasty, is clear proof. Born ordinary, once just a small local official, he had neither great education nor prestigious family background. Yet, at the perilous Hongmen banquet, where all his ambitions could have been buried, he remained extraordinarily calm. No panic, no complaints. With wisdom and courage, he diffused danger, survived, and went on to establish a dynasty that lasted over 4 centuries. The lesson isn't just in ancient history. It's in how people channel their energy when faced with challenges. Today, many people collapse not because the obstacle is too great, but because their inner strength is too weak. Faced with the same situation, a high-energy person sees a test. A low-energy person sees the end. The difference lies in inner strength, and strength is not innate. It is forged day by day through cultivating life energy. Just like Wang Yangming, the great Confucian scholar and philosopher who was exiled to remote, harsh lands. Stripped of power and position, he could have fallen. Yet, instead, he wrote timeless philosophy, birthing the doctrine of the unity of knowledge and action. A man in exile, without extraordinary spiritual energy, could never have left behind teachings that guided generations. These stories are not meant to pressure, but to remind us energy can turn the universe itself. You don't need to be a king, general, or great figure to need strong energy. In daily life, raising children, resolving family conflicts, facing financial stress, or changing career paths, all require an energy source strong enough not to be swept away by fleeting emotions or crushed by judgment. And the good news is, this energy can always be nurtured from the simplest things. The ancients said, if you wish to govern a nation, first govern yourself. If you haven't corrected yourself, the way won't flow. The essence is still to realign yourself before trying to change anything outside. Though starting points differ, everyone has the right to live a meaningful life. Ideal conditions don't decide fate, inner strength does. Ask yourself, where does your energy come from each day? What drains it, and how do you recharge it? Are you living proactively or merely reacting? What frequency are you emitting to those around you? Honest answers to these questions will help you recalibrate your life energy in a profound and lasting way. Life energy is not the privilege of a few, but the result of conscious living and consistent practice. If energy is the root that shapes emotions, behavior, outcomes, and destiny, then nurturing energy is the most fundamental act of living deeply and meaningfully. In this journey, the most dangerous enemy isn't external forces, but the energy thieves hidden within ourselves. They may be prolonged worries, simmering anger, or the feeling of repeated failure replaying in the mind. If left unresolved, these emotions will drain energy like water drops emptying a jar. The ancients said, one thought of anger opens 100,000 obstacles. Buddhist teachings remind us, a human life is rare to obtain and a peaceful mind is hard to keep. If negative emotions invade, even when life seems favorable outside, the inner world becomes chaotic and energy is lost. Every complaint drains inner strength. Every resentment robs clarity. That is the soft yet perilous trap. Another energy thief is the habit of unconscious living, immersing in instant pleasures, endless scrolling, gossip, shallow entertainment, while forgetting inner stillness. At first, it seems harmless, but over time, it erodes the spirit, leaving us strangers to ourselves. Confucius said, the wise delight in water, the benevolent delight in mountains. The wise love water for its flow, the benevolent love mountains for their stillness. In today's world, surrounded by noise, we've forgotten the way back to stillness, where energy is reborn. When the mind is not still, wisdom is clouded. When wisdom is clouded, actions become rushed, uncertain, and energy is consumed without end. Many people feel exhausted not because of heavy work or overwhelming responsibilities, but because of an unmindful way of living. The body may be strong, yet if the mind is constantly scattered by meaningless thoughts, energy will never be sufficient for the long journey. Many think they are living, but in reality, they are merely existing in uncontrolled consumption. The first step to elevating energy is to recognize what is draining us each day. To do this, one must learn to slow down, not to escape, but to return inward and manage the inner world. Only when we truly understand what is sapping our vitality can we consciously close those leaking doors and reestablish a healthy, stable energy field. I once spent a long period struggling with myself, raising endless questions. Why am I exhausted even when I sleep enough? Why do I feel empty even when everything outside seems fine? Why do I feel like I'm drowning even without a major crisis? Until one day, I stopped. I didn't seek answers elsewhere, but simply sat still and observed the feelings within. I realized that I wasn't tired because of work, nor sad because of anyone. I was tired because I had lived too long without caring for my inner energy. When I understood that, I began the journey of nurturing my life force again, slowly, steadily, and more mindfully each day. And then, as a natural reaction, I started nourishing myself again from the simplest things. From that experience, I drew 3 core methods to gradually restore and strengthen vital energy. Not miraculous therapies, nor sophisticated techniques, but ancient principles long forgotten amidst our modern busy and fragmented lives. If practiced regularly, these will bring profound changes in our appearance, mindset, and quality of life. 1. Strengthen the root. Restore physical energy through caring for the body and moderating desires. The body is the foundation of all forms of energy. No matter how beautiful the light of a lamp is, if the oil tank is empty, it cannot burn forever. The body is the first container of vitality. Unfortunately, many of us, even when pursuing intellectual or spiritual growth, neglect the root of life force, physical health. I once thought strong willpower alone could overcome fatigue, but reality shows that a weak body cannot generate strong emotions. A body deprived of sleep, irregular eating, and little movement will soon create a low energy field, negative, stagnant, and drained. From Eastern medicine, I learned a simple yet profound principle. Calmness nourishes spirit, movement nourishes energy, eating nourishes blood, sleep nourishes organs. That means resting restores the mind, movement circulates qi and blood, proper diet nourishes vitality, and deep sleep repairs the organs. These may sound ordinary, but when practiced consistently after just a few months, energy shifts remarkably. In Confucianism, self-cultivation is always seen as the first condition for governing and creating peace. Because if one cannot maintain a healthy body and stable rhythm, one cannot sustain the inner strength needed for great work. I also realized that excessive desire is a terrifying leak that drains energy. Not only physical desire, but also uncontrolled cravings for recognition, superiority, attention, victory. Desire always burns energy. The ancients practiced not to become saints, but to govern themselves. When desires are restrained, the body and mind become lighter, and energy returns, like a river no longer leaking. Confucius once said, "A noble person guards himself like guarding jade, not indulgent, not reckless." Buddhism teaches, contentment is wealth. Desire little, know enough. Reducing cravings is the fastest way to peace. The more people chase things outside, the harder to keep energy inside. The more they restrain, return to the basics, the greater their silent and enduring power. 2. Unblock energy channels. Restore vitality through movement, breath regulation, and mindfulness. After adjusting the body and moderating desires, I began to unblock energy flow, using movement to circulate life force. Taoism says, Tao gives birth to one, one gives birth to two, two gives birth to three, three gives birth to all things. Everything begins with a force, and that force must move through qi. If the body remains idle, blood stagnates and spirit declines. So I started small habits, morning walks, evening stretches, deep breathing before sleep, avoiding sitting too long. The results were amazing. The body clearer, the mind sharper, negative emotions dissolving. Movement doesn't just restore the body, but also cleanses emotions. A tired morning transforms after a 15-minute walk under sunlight. A stressful evening calms down with a few stretches, leading to deep, dreamless sleep. I finally understood why the ancients never abandoned movement, from Tai Chi, Qigong, to walking meditation. The body is like a river. When blocked, water rots. When Qi stagnates, spirit clouds. Movement opens the valve, letting Qi flow, reviving the spirit. At the same time, I practiced breath regulation, observing breath and subtle inner movement. The Buddha taught, dwell in breath, and you return to yourself. Breath bridges body and mind. When breathing deep, slow, steady, one steps away from chaotic thoughts. Breath is the doorway back, the golden thread keeping the mind from drifting. Since learning proper breathing, my mindfulness grew. Negative emotions no longer dominated. Situations that once provoked anger became light. Worries turned into simple acceptance. That mindfulness accumulates energy, silently, deeply, and lastingly. 3. Adjust the inner world. Restore mental energy through stillness, right mindfulness, and meaning in life. Even if the body is strong and energy abundant, if inside there is chaos, fear, envy, and doubt, energy will still be drained. You may eat healthily, exercise daily, but if every night you ruminate on the past or fear the future, you still live in a leaking energy field. The first step to managing the inner world is learning to sit still with oneself. Just 15 to 30 minutes daily, doing nothing but observing, breath, thoughts, feelings arising. No judgment, no escape. Gradually, the mind becomes like water. The more stirred, the cloudier. The calmer, the clearer. When the mind calms, wisdom shines. When wisdom shines, energy is restored. The ancients valued stillness. In Confucian Great Learning, it is written, only with stability comes stillness, only with stillness comes peace, only with peace comes clarity, only with clarity comes attainment. Nothing restores energy better than deep stillness. This isn't laziness or avoidance, but mindful quiet, not pulled by the noise of life. That is the starting point for true inner strength. High energy people often live with meaning. Low energy people live in doubt. Meaning isn't a grand ideal, but simply knowing what you are doing, for whom, and for what is worth living. When you find meaning in each action, each job, each relationship, energy arises naturally. But when everything is done just to finish, no amount of rest will give you fullness. The Buddha taught, mind precedes all states. Mind is chief, mind shapes all. Every experience begins with an inner thought. If the mind is bright and kind, everything it touches transforms. Mind is the root of qi, qi the basis of strength, strength the start of action. Action repeated becomes habit. Habit long sustained becomes character. Character is the clearest sign of inner energy. I share these as a fellow traveler, once weary, confused, asking why passion and direction were lost, though life seemed fine. Only when I learned to restore life energy through simple practices did I feel fuller, steadier, calmer, and clearer. I don't think I'm perfect, but I believe that when you care for inner energy, life changes from the roots. No need to run fast, only stop at the right place. No need to force strength, only stand firm from within. No need to shine for anyone, only shine for yourself, with the pure, mindful, deep energy you create each day. That is the only way to live without exhaustion. To live, truly, is to be an energetic being, each day. When we learn to turn inward, consciously filling life energy, each step, each breath, each gaze becomes part of transformation. No need to rush, just walk steadily. Because once your energy is full, life will naturally blossom in its own way. If what I shared today makes you pause and look deeper into yourself, that is already a great joy. Life is a long journey, and each of us is on the way back to inner wholeness. If you find this video meaningful, please subscribe to the channel so we can continue walking together on the journey of awakening, nurturing energy, and sowing goodness. Thank you for spending your time listening with the deep presence of a kindred spirit. May you always dwell in mindfulness, live with pure inner strength, and let each day unfold as a blossom of awakening blooming in your heart.